classifying things for those reasons. So he's been transparent on everything except this one. If he has a reason, that's okay.
Yeah. And with that, it is time for Bulletproof Estate Planning with my good friend Stan Pierchoski, Pierchoski Estate Law. And how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you? I missed you last week.
We had a week off there for the 4th and all that. So we had an encore presentation last Friday, which was the 4th. Did you have a big 4th of July?
I did. We had family visiting. Not all the family, but most of the family. So actually, kids put on a pretty good fireworks display. I'm a little bit shocked at how much the fireworks cost, but
yeah.
But it was good. We had grilled, had some good food. Yeah, it was good.
Very good.
Nice hot day like it's supposed to be. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it rained at all.
It was everything it should have been, at our house. So that was good.
Yeah, we had fun. So anyway, so we were not here last week, but like you said, we played a show that we did earlier. But we're back, and I've got some things to talk about today that have to do with what happened last weekend. But first of all, let me go over that. I've been telling you about my live seminar, and now it has. I keep saying it's coming up. So it's about a month out. Now it's crept up on us.
Pretty
now,
close.
So it's really a week from tomorrow. It's a week from tomorrow. It's July the 19th, and so it has snuck up on us. And so we're doing our seminar. It's called Wills, Trust, and the Nursing Home. And that's what we talk about. And it's going to be at the Star Theater on a beautiful square in Pulaski, Tennessee. The Star Theater is right next to my office. If you need a physical address for that, it's 105 North 1st Street in Pulaski, if you need GPS to get there. But it's a Saturday seminar, and we do those at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I try to start those as promptly as we can. Ms. Courtney tells me we've got a pretty good turnout so far. She lets me know from time to time, and I think it was a pretty good turnout a couple of weeks ago. But we have a lot of room there, so that's okay. So if you want to come to that, just call my office at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law at 931-363-7222, or go to my website at Estate Plan Stan, and you can get signed up for that. If you can't decide whether you're going to make it or not, and 8 o'clock Saturday morning, you say, okay, it sounds like we can go. Don't worry about the RSVP and just pop in. It's no big deal. It happens every time we do it. We have people that can't make it, and we got people that walk in. Walk-ins are welcome. The RSVP is very loose. We just like to have a head count. So, the theater's a pretty big venue. So we're looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of people there. So I'll bring that up again at the end of the
Well, I know a lot of people have really benefited from that information, no doubt.
And, we talk about stuff, and the whole reason of seminar, you may think of it, estate planning seminar, how exciting can it be? I mean, it's not necessarily designed to be exciting, but it is, you will learn some information that you've never heard before.
Yeah.
And all I ask is that you be open to information you've not heard before. And because there are options out there for estate planning. So many people, or one of the reasons we started doing the seminars in the first place was a lot of people would come to my office and say, I want to write a will. And I would actually say something like, would you like to hear about other options? Mm-hmm. And they would say, I thought a will is all you could do. And so that's a little misinformation out there, that there are options other than wills. Trust, for one, you hear me talk about it all the time. And as far as long-term care, there's a lot of misinformation out there about getting eligible for long-term care, which is something I want to talk about today, because last Friday, while we were enjoying the 4th of July, the one big beautiful bill was signed into law.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which I guess now is one big beautiful law, because in the way it works on Schoolhouse Rock, once a bill gets signed, it turns into a law.
It's a law, that's right.
So, and I want to talk about, because I get asked, and I think you asked one time, is what's going to be the effect of that on some of the stuff that I do? And so I went back. I had skimmed through it as it was in Congress, and as it went to the Senate. I looked at the areas that I wanted to look at. So I sat down. I got a PDF version of it. And it's 1,116 pages long. Okay. Now.
Oh wow.
Here's what I want to talk about today. It'll probably take most of the show, but people can call in, and we might as well give them that number. If you have any comment or anything, I'm more than happy to answer questions. You can give us a call. The number is 931-766-9393.
Perfect.
So you can call in and ask. But what I want to talk about, so I looked at the bill, and there's all kind of stuff in it, right? So and there were some areas I was interested in. I spent some time on, like some of the border stuff, some of I didn't look at some of the tax credits and that because I'm not a tax attorney. And,
Yeah.
my opinion, taxation can bore an idiot.
Yeah.
but it's a specialized field. So,
It is that.
but I did not spend a lot of time on that. There's lots of things in there on other stuff. Okay, so but one thing I want to make, here's the point I want to try and make. You hear a lot of rhetoric about it, especially when it was before it passed and there was voting on it. It was going back and forth from Congress to Senate. I mean, there's a lot of opponents of the bill who tried to call it the one big ugly bill, and there's a lot of rhetoric about it. Two things that I hear a lot of rhetoric about is that it messes up Medicare,
Right.
which is the insurance end of, and it messes up, and it's an attack on Medicaid. Now, you don't hear me talk about Medicare much, but I talk mostly about Medicaid. So I'm going to review that before I move into it because, there's two systems, Medicare and Medicaid. And by the way, on July the 31st, coming up here in a couple of weeks, both those programs will be 60 years old.
Wow.
1965, July 31st, 1965, both the Medicare Act, the Federal Medicare Act, and the Federal Medicaid Act were signed into law by President Johnson. And so they'd be 60 years old, and you'd think we'd understand them by now, wouldn't you?
You'd think we would.
So, anyway, there was some talk about, this is going to destroy Medicare. I want to tell you something. The word Medicare is not in that document. Now, like I said, I didn't read the entire thing. I read a lot of it, but I actually had a PDF of it and searched the word Medicare, and it's not there.
Okay.
So nothing has been done with Medicare. So if you hear somebody on TV say Medicare is being cut, that's the insurance end, right? Medicare is your health insurance. You get to Part A. Everybody gets Part A, and you pay for Part B on a sliding scale. And you buy your own supplements to pick up what B doesn't pay for, right? Nothing has been done with Medicare. Not a thing. So if you hear somebody arguing that it's been cut, they're either don't know or they're just falsifying the statement because it's not there. If you don't believe me, then you can find the document and go look at it. It's not there. If you find it, let me know because I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spend much time talking about it because they didn't do anything. Now there was some stuff with Medicaid. Now remember, like I said, Medicare is the insurance, right?
Yes.
And insurance is the Medicare is the same everywhere, all states.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Medicaid is something completely different.
Yeah.
I know they're only two letters of the alphabet different, but they sure are different in what they do, and they are way, way different on what they'll pay for.
Well, they certainly didn't intend to confuse us with this.
No, I'm sure they didn't. Medicaid is what pays for long-term care.
Yes.
Medicare does not. Now there's some misleading overlap when people go in to the hospital and get sick or break their leg, and then they discharge them to a nursing facility to rehabilitate. That's not long-term care. That's rehabilitation, and Medicare does pay that, but that's very limited. In other words, they cap that at 100 days.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about Medicaid, long-term care. Sometimes we call it Medicaid long-term care, where you go to the facility and you're going to be there for a while or forever.
Yeah.
That's what long-term care we're talking about. So there is some discussion of that, but the good news is the changes are pretty minor, and from my experience and the people I deal with, there's going to be little, if no effect on any of them. And there's a change in there that I think was long overdue. That is a very positive change that adds to it. There are two things really. First thing is the question was, did they cut Medicaid? Because you hear a lot about that. They cut Medicaid. Tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their Medicaid. Okay, again, not true. Because they actually added $185 billion. Now that's offered to the states, because the way it works is like this. When Medicaid changes the federal act, so when the feds change the federal act, which is what they call the OBBB does, then the states can opt in or not opt in.
Yeah.
When they changed the look back period from 3 years to 5 years, 49 states opted in and did that. One did not, California. But, I mean, that sounds like an advantage, but it's not out there. They're screwed up out there so much it doesn't help.
Yeah.
But the point is, the states don't have to accept the new changes, right? And so, and it's too early to know what states are chiming in just yet. And they almost always opt in because they have this almost $200 billion of money that they'll give you if you opt in.
Sure.
They kind of sweeten the pot. So if you opt in, we'll give you some federal money.
Right.
And so the states usually go for that. So they didn't cut any money from it. Okay, now, that, you know, we'll talk about some of the cuts they did make, but in my opinion, they are needed cuts. You know, so we'll talk about that. But looking through it, you know, I brought some notes that I brought, and I forgot my glasses, but I did put it in like 18 or 20 point font, so I should be able to see it. Okay, I just have to look at them to keep the flow going. But
I've got some spare glasses, by the way.
no, that's okay. I'm good. One of the things I thought that was an effect, and it's going to take a lot of explanation, but it's we have something when you're trying to get eligible for TennCare. Now, okay, this thing I want to finish on that. Medicaid, of course, is the federal act, right?
Yes.
Now, unlike Medicare, Medicaid is governed by the individual states. They all have their own version of it. Ours is called TennCare. Okay. All the states have a cute little name, or some do, except for like Alabama. Alabama just calls it Alabama Medicare. It's not very creative, but you get,
Yeah.
I mean Medicaid, but you get the idea. So see, even I
Yes.
slipped the
It's so
tongue.
easy to get them confused.
But you know, a good way to think of Medicaid among the states is you think you have this one big bubble. That's the Medicaid Act. Well, inside this bubble are 50 little bubbles in all 50 states, and they can all do whatever they want as long as they stay inside the big bubble. That is the parameters, right?
Right.
Some of the little bubbles can overlap, and some of them do, but none of them are completely overlapped. They all are different uniquely, but some of them are similar in their rules. Okay?
Yeah.
So as long as you stay within the Medicaid Act, the states govern their own versions of it. Now, our version in Tennessee is called TennCare. But TennCare is different than Alabama Medicaid, so if you know somebody down there and there's something they can do that you don't, that I say you can't do here, that's why. There are different rules. Some states are very different. Florida is really different. They're actually a very good state. I wish we could do some of the things that they can do in Florida, to be honest with you. But so they're very different. Now, that being said, here in TennCare, in most of the other states, they have a home equity limit. Now, they by law put a limit on the value of a house.
Right.
Now, they do that because of this. The primary residence. Now, I'm not talking about all your real estate. There's two kinds of real estate when you talk about TennCare. One is called the primary residence, which is just what it sounds like, where you live.
Yes.
And if you have some other property, you know, across the way or downtown, or that's called other real estate.
Okay.
And it's defined as everything that's contiguous is the primary residence. So you can have a 2-acre plot with your land, with your house on it. And if you have a 100-acre plot that actually shares a border with that 2 acres, that's called contiguous. And you do the whole thing, the whole 102 acres now would be the primary residence. But if it's defined as if there's a third property owner in between you and a piece of real estate, now it's classified as other real estate.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to talk much about other real estate because that's just considered a straight out countable asset. So if you got, you know, we're trying to get somebody eligible for TennCare, that countable asset isn't something we have to deal with. But the primary residence, now, so listen to me carefully here. The primary residence is a countable asset. But it also is an excluded asset. Now, excluded is somewhat of a misleading term. What it means is this: if you're trying to get eligible for TennCare, we know, and you've heard me say, and if you've done any Google internet searching, you will find that to become eligible for TennCare and in many other states, you have to be below a certain ownership of resources level.
Right.
Okay, there's an income level, and I'm not going to talk about that because that really wasn't addressed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. But the resources, and you have to have below $2,000, right? We've talked about that.
Okay.
Now, so suppose you got this house and it's worth $500,000. I mean, it's not hard to have a $400,000 or $500,000 house these days, right? I mean,
Not
so
at all.
let's say you have a $500,000 house. Now, if that's a countable resource, how can you ever get eligible for TennCare? Because if you have a $500,000 house that's a countable asset, you are $498,000 over resource.
Yeah.
Are you not? So, you know, but it's pretty well known you don't have to sell your home to pay for care. Okay, I mean,
Right.
Some people do because they just don't know any better and they just do it. Nobody's going to stop you from doing that, but you don't have to do that. What you can do is you can exclude the home. Now, it doesn't change it from a countable asset. Exclusion is just a subset of the countable. So what they're going to do is they're going to take it out of the countable column and put it over here in the excluded. And all it means is when they figure out what you own, they're not going to include. It's excluded from the numbers. And instead of you having $500,000 of countable assets, they're going to not look at that.
Yeah.
They're going to count up everything but the house. Now, what happens is you can what happens is then if you take the house out of the equation, you may be eligible. And if you're eligible, you go into the nursing facility, they pay your bill, not the nursing, the TennCare pays your bill, and then at your death, they can exercise TennCare Estate Recovery Act, which means they're going to go after everything in your estate. Now, let's remember the house. It's still there. It's still a countable asset. You still own it. All we did was not use the value of it when we figured out whether you were eligible for resource eligibility. Okay? So they're going to come after the house in estate recovery. So it's not protected. So when somebody tells you that your primary residence is a protected asset, that's not right. It's an excluded asset, which is really a deferral, in my opinion. Just kind of kicks the can down the road.
Sure.
They will go after it, but not until after you pass away. And like I said many times, God bless them, they will wait for, if you have a spouse still living in the home, they'll wait for them to pass away before they go after it. But they will go after it, because that's an estate, that's an asset that they'll be able to collect on.
Yeah.
So that primary residence, they have every year when they come up with the new numbers, because all the numbers change on basically cost of living type stuff every January. And right now, the home equity cap for a home in Tennessee is $730,000. So let's just say, if we have a $730,000 home, now the value of the home is not what you think it'll sell for, okay? For TennCare purposes.
Okay.
This is where I'm leaving your realm of real estate. Your realm of real estate is what a buyer will pay and what a seller will accept.
Sure.
Fair market value on the open market. TennCare has to identify the fair market value of real estate, and they do so by saying it is the tax appraised value on the tax card. And the last tax appraisal we had was 22 during the last census, which we do every 5 years. So that won't change until, well, it can change. If you do something and they decide to come out and take a look, they'll change the value. But again, it's technically not going to change again until 27 at the next mid-census. Okay.
Right.
Now, so that's what they lock it as fair market value. No, I understand that's not what you could sell it for, but that's what TennCare calls it. So, if your tax card says it's worth $730,000, you can exclude the whole thing. They'll never use it again, any of it against you, right?
Right.
But let's say you have $1 million house. Okay, the tax card says it's worth $1 million. Well, you can only exclude $730,000 of that, so you're still going to have $270,000 of countable asset that you have to deal with. That's what the home equity limit is all about. Well, in my business, don't get too many that are above that, but you can with some of these. If the house, the primary residence is the house where you live on, and any contiguous property. I once had somebody that had bought some land beside the house and then later bought some more land, and it was like 1,000 acres.
Yes.
Was the primary residence. Now we're going to get up into that million,
Oh, yeah.
especially if it's an operating farm or something. You're going to get up into this area. Okay, so that's the way that works on the excluded asset. That's the way it's always worked. So what they're doing is they're imposing a federal cap of $1 million, which is actually it's $1,071,000.
Okay.
Let's just call it $1 million. And they're not going to do the inflation adjustment every year. And now this is going to go into effect January 1st of 2028. So it's going to be a couple years before it goes into effect. But it will. Now that sounds like it's a big problem, but really, it only is a concern. It's going to enter into the equation if you don't live in the home. Okay, so let me see what that means. That we have some waiver programs with TennCare, which are like home and community-based systems, where you can live at home and still receive TennCare help.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't apply to that. There's no limit. Okay. And I want to back up a little bit, because the home equity limit of $730,000 doesn't apply if you're a married couple. It only applies if you're a single individual. Okay. So it's becoming more and more rare that it's going to be used, right? So if you leave the home, and when would you leave the home? You would leave the home to go live in the facility. That's what they're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so if you're in a high net worth neighborhood, or that you may be at that $1 million cap already, or over time, real estate always goes up.
Sure.
It has its up and down, but it's always a net up, right? Real estate's always what we call 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Oh yeah.
It's always getting more. And so, coming in the future years, that may be an issue. Okay. and that's what I consider the most significant change, which is still relatively a minor change in my opinion, because if you're a married couple, we can skirt around that.
Right.
But this brings up, I want to make something very perfectly clear here. One of the things we hear me talk about all the time on this show and on my other radio shows and at my seminars, and at the one coming up in a week, is this asset protection trust we do.
Yes.
We call it the income-only asset protection trust. That is the perfect solution to this issue.
Yeah.
Get this property into an asset protection trust. The minute you put it into the trust, it becomes a non-countable resource. Okay, you've changed it. You've given it to the trust. The trust now has it, and it's changed its posture from a countable asset to a non-countable asset. Now it does not matter whether it's $1 million or $5 million. It's excluded. It's now not in the equation at all. We just have to get it into this trust and have get by a 5-year period so they can't impose a penalty period on us.
Yes.
Now, but the penalty period has nothing to do with the home equity limit. Okay, so that's if we can save a $5 million or multi-million-dollar piece of property,
right.
The penalty period is really not our biggest problem.
Right.
So there's a perfect solution for this, and it's the thing I talk about a lot and say, hey, before you're in crisis, remember we talked about crisis is actually
That's
being
right.
there. Before you're in crisis, get one of these asset protection trusts, and at the very least, get your real estate put into it.
Yeah.
If you got big bank accounts that you want to protect, you can put those in too. But it's not uncommon in my practice that the home is the only thing in these trusts, and now it's just become a little more important that you do that.
I had a quick question on the real estate portion. The primary residence and any adjoining property is considered primary residence.
That's correct.
Does it have to be in the same parcel tax?
No,
Parcel.
it can be multiple parcels.
It can be multiple,
But
as long as they're
All multiple
contiguous.
have to be contiguous, which means they share a boundary.
Yes, okay.
Remember, I said the definition of other real estate is if there's a third-party owner of a parcel between you and your parcel. So
Just
if you own-
making sure I was right
If you
about
own a plot down the street,
Yeah,
that's other real estate because there's somebody that owns property between you and that.
Okay.
None of those boundaries touch.
okay.
Yeah, they are.
So as long as they're touching properties or boundaries touch,
That's right. And so, you may have a primary home and it's only on 1 acre, but it could include a lot more depending on what else you have.
Right.
And that's kind of how it is. People buy a home and maybe the lot beside them opens up and
Right.
they kind of don't want anybody to build there, so they buy the lot or something like that.
or an adjoining farm.
Yeah, or if it's farmland,
Yeah.
it comes up and it's like, hey, it's a pretty decent price and I can add to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because you can make the primary residence pretty big.
Yeah, you can.
And if it's excludable, because when we get people eligible, we use that exclusion. We do a little bit more than that, but we use that to get it out of the equation.
Yeah.
And then we get it out of everybody's name before they pass away so that it's not part of the state recovery.
Very good.
So this could have an effect. I don't see much of one, but it could. But if there's any effect at all, this asset protection trust makes it go away entirely. So it becomes even more important to give this some thought, especially while you're still healthy.
Yeah.
And get these big ticket items, especially big ticket items like real estate, that continue to become an even bigger ticket item over time, right? And so,
Right.
who knows what's going to happen in Tennessee? I have a lot of people that have moved here from other states. A lot of people from California, because it's unbearable out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I often say this, and when people come to me and they say they moved here from California, I often ask them a question. I say, did you come here to escape or to change?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
And if the answer is escape, then okay, we'll talk. If the answer is change, I say there's nothing here for you. I don't want you as a client. And I can do that. I don't have to take people if I don't want to.
It's pretty rare though in this day and time that I run across somebody that's coming here to change just like California. They're trying to get away from
Yeah,
it.
they're all escaping.
Yeah.
I had one gentleman, he was a relatively young fellow, who put it a pretty neat way. He said, oh yeah, he said when the captain deliberately steers the ship directly at the iceberg, it's time to jump off.
Oh my gosh! Yes, time to get out.
Good way to explain it. But you know what? If they elect that knucklehead that's running for mayor in New York, you're going to see a mass exodus from New York. Now, probably with those people.
There's already been some.
Yeah, and the problem with those people is if you have to mass exit it because of that reason, how much do you think you're going to be able to sell your property for? It is going to be a seller's market if that happens.
Oh,
Don't you think? A buyer's market.
Buyer's
it's gonna
market.
It's going to be a buyer's market because you may have a very expensive piece of property which is going to be the target of socialism, right?
Yes.
And so you want to sell it. You're not going to get somebody that kind of money come in and buy a piece that's going to be subject to that because they'll say that person is either not there or wanting to leave themselves. I mean, that's my take on it. I'm not a real estate expert, but
Well, it's
it's going to destroy
for
the
you and
market.
I. It seems so blatantly obvious that this is such a wrong move.
I know. And you know what? I will be shocked if this really gains any traction, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I sort of take the position if that's what they elect, then they get what they ask for. And then it's hard to be sympathetic.
I heard someone credit that to a lot of young people, uneducated young people, that have made this happen.
And I mean, they don't know the difference between socialism and capitalism.
Yeah.
Just ask one of them.
They don't.
It's like the people that talk about the one big beautiful bill and they say, "Oh, people are going to die." If I could be there in person, I would like to say,
Yeah.
tell me why they're going to die. What in this bill is going to make people die? They're going to starve to death? Are they going to be poisoned? Is a flood going to take them out? Explain to me. You never get that. As a matter of fact, they had the Democratic senator from Connecticut who was ranting and raving, and they asked him on one of the CNN shows, which this is a classic case of don't ask a question unless you know the answer.
Yeah.
And they said, well, they have these no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. I said, what do you think about that? And he paused for a really long time and said, well, I never really looked into that very much. But this is what he said. He said, but tax or income, and if people are making more money with tips and income, then we need to tax that income. Now talk about being out of touch with reality. And talk about shooting your mouth off when you shouldn't be doing it. And, I mean, they just literally buried himself because the person that asked the question had this dumbfounded look on their face. Like, I can't believe you actually said that. But anyway, and so I'm trying to clean up the rhetoric on this bill because the bill, this is the biggest thing in there that I see an impact, and I don't see it as being a very big one, especially when you have the tool of the income-only asset protection trust to solve the problem completely, which is what we do. We do a lot of those trusts. They're very popular.
Yeah.
So get in, do it. Get in line and do it because you don't have to be coming from these other places to do this. Property in Tennessee, they make it $730,000 for a reason. There's a lot of property is in that range.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, that doesn't even take effect till January 1st, 2028. Let me move on to some other of these things here, and that is one of the things that they did change in the cuts that they made is a place I think is way overdue for change, and that is the cuts they're making. They're tightening up eligibility requirements. One of them is citizenship. Okay, so the people who are unhappy about this cut are the people that are not. Well, let me back up. You hear me sometimes say there's three categories you got to qualify for to get long-term care. One is medically needy, right?
Yep.
You got to have a medical reason to be in a facility, right?
Right.
Two is income eligibility, and you have to be resource eligibility. Those are three categories I talk about all the time. There's actually five. I just don't talk about the first two because they're kind of gimmies. The first one is you got to be a United States citizen.
Yeah.
And the second one is you have to be a resident of the state of Tennessee to get tenure.
Okay.
Now, I don't bring those up because people come in my office, it's pretty much a gimme, right?
It's kind of obvious.
So, but they're tightening up on that because there's a lot of illegal aliens that are getting TennCare. Not TennCare, but Medicaid. According to this bill. And so they're tightening up. You don't get, this money I said, the $200 billion they're going to dangle in front of the states. You have to implement their procedures that tighten up on citizenship requirements. Because the only person that this is bad news to is the freeloader that's not a United States citizen getting care. Now, I have no problem with this change. I mean, if you do, and you want to argue with me, I don't think you can win it, but they don't, because it's a drug on the system. Because people that are getting care that are not eligible are not, then there's people that are eligible that it's taking from.
Yeah,
It's as simple, the mathematics is simple.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. I don't know any statistics for how many in Tennessee, but I know up in Nashville, for a while that was what they call sanctuary city status, right? And that's where that kind of stuff happens. So I don't know the numbers, but I know there's some.
Yeah.
But what if there's any at all, it is taking away from who this program was designed to take care of. When 60 years ago, when they signed this act, if they would have wanted it to be illegal aliens, they wouldn't have put in the requirements. You have to be a United States citizen.
Well, this begs the question. I mean, it was already a rule.
Yes.
It was already a rule
From
that
its inception.
you had to be a citizen and a resident. So how are they getting by with giving them the benefits if they don't meet those two first requirements?
That I don't know how. It's just overlooked or intentionally not enforced.
Yeah.
And apparently it's been going on for a long enough time that it's not questioned anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know, how does a program, and other programs have suffered this too, start out with a good idea and after years of implementation, they're just sort of out of control in some way or another.
That seems to be the case.
So this, this is a welcome change to me. I've never experienced it in my
Yeah.
practice. I've experienced like a spouse being a non-citizen, but they're in the process of citizenship, because that takes
That takes a
can
while.
take a while. Yeah.
And that's a legal process.
Yeah, and that's okay. But so that's bad news for people who are getting it, who don't really deserve it. If you want it, if you need it, then become a citizen, and
Yeah.
then you'll get it. I mean, the rules are there for a reason. You don't put, when I was in criminal law, the rules, if you don't follow the rules, then I could do a lot,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you're a DUI, you gotta be .01 blood alcohol. .09999 is not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, .00999.
Yeah.
It fails, that's, if they wanted it to mean .0099, they would've said so, but they didn't, they said it was .01.
Yeah.
So same thing here, if they didn't mean US citizen or resident of your state or resident of Tennessee, then they wouldn't have said it. But since they have said it, that needs to be enforced. Now,
Yeah.
that's what this is attempting to do. Now, I think it's much more out of control in other places than here, but I'm sure we have some.
Probably so.
But I mean, as a general Medicaid look over the entire country, I mean, now this 200 billion that they have, they're going to apportion it to states based on their population of how many people they have to serve. So if you're California and you have like a majority of people on this, because that's where they all flock, because that's where they try to keep you from being deported, right?
Yeah.
And so technically a bigger portion of this would go into a place like that. So it would affect us because we're not going to get any of that federal Medicaid money, or get a smaller proportion.
Yeah.
So I don't have a real problem with that at all. If you're not a citizen, you don't belong in this program, it's not for you. It was never intended to be for you, so you can't make the argument, well, I need care. Well, if you need care, you must have to get some other kind of care, because this was only intended for citizens. So
Yeah.
I think that was
Yeah.
a good change. One of the other changes that came up was, and let me see, when does that go into effect? The citizenship, that goes into effect quickly. Well, kind of quickly, October 1st, 2026. That's
Okay.
when that full force,
Well,
when they
in
pass
terms
these,
of government movement, that's pretty fast.
when they pass these kind of laws and they have to make certain rule changes, it can't happen overnight. They passed it, but it's gonna actually be in full swing come October 1st, 2026. So, another thing that came up, and this is not a big deal either, but it's something I do see happen sometimes, and that is when we get people eligible for TennCare. If we get you eligible, let's just say January 1st, okay? If we get you eligible and we file an application January 1st, there's a thing called retroactive eligibility, and it works like this. If you would have been eligible in 3 months before, so October, November, and December, right? If you would have been eligible and you just now got around to filing, you can get TennCare to reach back and pay
Yeah.
90 days, 3 months, okay? Now, they're gonna shorten that to 2. And although, usually when we do the type of thing that we do, we usually do our spend down by turning countable assets into a non-countable stream of income with an annuity or something like that. And when we do that, that usually, the bottom line is they didn't even become eligible until we actually filed the application. So if you look back 90 days, they weren't eligible 90 days ago because
Right.
we modified it. So I every now and then I get a case where I can go after some retroactivity, but normally not. But they're changing it, and the change is shrinking it from 3 months to 2 months. So not that big of a deal. Let's see, I talked about the citizenship. There was something here that I didn't even know about. There was something called the nursing home staffing rule. Nursing homes may know about this, but I don't deal much with the care in a nursing home. When I deal with a nursing home, I deal with the administration.
Sure.
I don't much deal with the care. I'm sure it's good care.
Yes.
But and I don't have any thing negative to say about that. But there's a rule called the nursing home staffing rule that was implemented by Biden in the Biden administration, and what it does is it requires minimum levels of RNs and CNAs, the
Okay.
people that are there. That's being delayed till 2034. They're putting the kibosh on that for 9 years.
Wow.
So I don't, which means to me it probably doesn't do much anyway.
Yes.
Minute. I mean, they're pretty well staffed. Making it a minimum number that they have to have, I don't know. I don't know much about it. I just saw it in there and thought it was interesting because it was something I didn't know and I like to know about things. About the last thing I want to bring up is, this is something I experienced. This is a very positive thing. It's a bright spot in this, in my opinion.
Yes.
And that is, when you deal with long-term care, we also deal with the waiver program of assisted living. Okay, assisted living is long-term care. It's just a lower level of care because you have these things called ADLs. They stand for activities of daily living. And it's like bathing yourself, clothing yourself, toileting yourself, feeding yourself, giving yourself medication.
Yeah.
I think there's 8 of them. And if you need help with 3 or possibly 4 of those, you qualify for full skilled nursing facility. There's a little more to it than that, but that's kind of the basic way it works.
Yeah.
Now, when you want to go into assisted living, it means you can do much more things for yourself, but you need help with some of those, a fewer number of those.
Yeah.
So you can still do stuff yourself, but you still need it's a lower level of care, right? And so, but up till now, that has always been, the qualification process, both financial and medically, was the exact same as nursing home.
Okay.
Okay, so sometimes it's hard to get that because of that. They're going to, now the medical reasons is what they're going to relax that. They're implementing a new waiver program of assisted living that reduces the requirements medically for assisted living people. Now, not going to affect much on the money end of it, and that I wouldn't have expected that. But we have troubles with that sometimes. We get somebody in assisted living, they have to do a PAE, a pre-application evaluation,
Right.
and they don't meet it, and so we can't get them eligible under that things. Usually we can get it done, we appeal it and write what's called safety letters and do some stuff. But I mean, now if they lower what it takes to be assisted living, medically, the people that are in that require the assisted living, it would be easier to get them eligible. So I thought that was a good change. Because, a lot of people, there's a big push to age in place, stay at home and age in place,
Oh, yeah.
that sort of thing. So if you need some help, you just don't need as much help, that's going to open up a lot of doors for that. So I think that's a big thing.
And
That's
sounds
pretty much,
good.
Those are the only things. There were a couple other things in there that I looked at, but were kind of just administrative. Didn't sound like anything we ever deal with that would have much of an effect on people's eligibility. So the bottom line, there's no cuts. So when you hear somebody say that on TV, they're either don't know what they're talking about, like the guy who didn't read he has all this to say about it, but obviously never read a word of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's either like that, or they're just intentionally being false.
Yes.
Because whenever they say, I like to say, this is a bad bill, this is the big ugly bill. And if you say why, there's no answer.
You notice that when they oppose something like this, they always say women and children are going to be hurt the worst, and they never tell you how.
That's right. I encountered somebody that said, and I don't usually get into arguments, I don't like to have a political grandstand, but somebody mentioned something, but when the bill, before it was signed, it was going back and forth, Congress and Senate, and, I said something about it, and they said, that's bad, that's a bad bill. And I said, why is it bad? They said, well, I don't know, it just is. I said, well, tell me, give me a for instance. What's bad about it? They said, oh, where should I start? It's like, well, I don't know, pick someplace and start. No, it's just, it's just not good for people. It's just not good for people. It never could get an answer. And I didn't say it, but it's like, did you read the 1,116 pages? I mean, seems like to make such a comment, a prerequisite would be that you read it and have some understanding of it. Whether you understand it entirely or not, but you have to have some understanding to put a basis. No, it's just somebody that heard somebody on TV say it was bad.
Yeah.
That flabbergastes me, because somebody goes on TV and says something's bad, and then somebody takes it as truth and moves forward. That is misinformation. Don't fall into that trap.
Well, I was reading an article just this morning concerning the bill, and there's been this big hype about how much it's going to add to the deficit. But I heard just the absolute opposite opinion this morning, reading another article that says that all of that is totally false. That is not going to add to the deficit. In fact, if things go like he thinks it's going to go, of course, this was an opinion piece. it will accelerate the economy and bring in revenue big time. And he said, get ready. And his words were, get ready to ride the rocket. It's going to be great. So who knows?
And you know, you're right. There's going to be a certain amount of spending in this bill.
Yeah,
it's
there
called
is.
the budget and spending bill.
It is.
Now, but that's half the story. The spending is one thing, but then what about the almost now is up to 15 trillion of money coming into this country on new business and industry, right?
Yeah.
Now, 15 trillion, that's almost half our national debt, which is 34,000 or 34
Yeah.
trillion, right?
Yeah.
So that's what that opinion is explaining.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that we'll have enough to put towards the debt from what's coming in, but we got to spend money to get there.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like a business. You got to spend money to start a business, and the business can be very lucrative, but you may take a step backwards financially to get started. You know? And there's such a mess that we have to correct that makes sense. So you're right. If you look at it and just say, oh, we're gonna spend a couple of $1 trillion doing this, well, that's true, but just wait a while and let's see what the end result of that is. The end result is going to be, like you said, it's going to be back in the green. So.
Well, I'm also fascinated at the was it the CDC? What is it? The budget office.
Okay.
They're always wrong.
Oh yeah.
They're wrong every
That's
time.
Right. That's right.
They're wrong every time.
It's also that's where they're trying to abolish that because of that.
Yeah.
They're never right. I think that
they are never right.
Yep.
It's amazing. They're never right, and I don't care which side of the fence you're on. They're never right.
I appreciate the one economic expert, and I say like in quotes, right? An economic expert to come out and said, you know, Trump was right. I was way against tariffs. I was completely negative on tariffs, but he was right. He may have outfoxed all of us, and it turned out to be very positive. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few that will admit, that hey, when they're wrong. Most of the time they never admit what they're wrong. No matter which side they're on, they never admit they're wrong.
And a couple of them did, and I give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Truth is truth.
Yeah.
It never hurts to be on the side of truth.
I've had to admit I was wrong about a lot over time.
I was wrong once. I made a mistake once.
You did?
Yeah, I was back in the second grade. I thought I was wrong, but I wasn't.
Yeah, that's an old adage there. I did make a mistake once by thinking I made a mistake. So.
No, it's it's gonna be it'll be a little rocky road like it was, but I mean anyway. The point on this bill is it's not as bad as you hear. I mean, again. Don't take my opinion or any other man's opinion. Look into it yourself. Now, you don't have to sit down and read a 1,000-page document. Because when they read it in the Senate, it took 16 hours to read it out loud.
Yeah.
Because they demanded they read it out loud. It was a delay tactic, right?
Yeah.
So they read it out loud. It took 16 hours. So if you want to read the whole thing, I assume if you can read, most people can read faster than you can read out loud. So it might take you equivalent of 16 hours to read it.
Well, I have not read it. I've read about it.
There's a lot of things in there that when you get to it, you say, I didn't want to bother reading this.
Yeah. Well, do you want to take a phone call?
Sure.
All right. Well, that's our phone caller. And good morning. How are you? Oh, we can hear you.
Go to college outstate, get a driver's license, and qualify for Medicaid, even though their parents are paying cash. And I wondered about the census, how they do that. In the past, years ago, they just kind of went by word of mouth because I know when my son went out of state to do this, I made sure he got his driver's license there. This was years ago. And that I changed my insurance because he would have automatically gone on to COBRA because a lot of those, things didn't work. I think that's something interesting to look at. Second thing is Mr. Pierchoski may not have time to address this today, is a lot of people think that 100 days is a done deal, and it may be why they delay. But if they set you a goal that you either can't reach or you can reach it too fast, they can decide you don't need it. In other words, let's say you have something you've got to do. You've got to be able to hop 20 times, what I'm saying, hop 20 times without help. And you haven't hopped in 50 years. You're not going to be able to do it if they don't have a history of why you can't do something like that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of issues like that why people may not even qualify for the first, or you decline something and you don't understand. I know the situation, it was my mother. They discontinued her Medicare, but we were toward the end just a few days, and brought her something to eat she had never eaten before, and they tend to talk like little girls.
Yeah, all right.
Nobody can understand, and with me with good hearing, I could tell them to speak up.
All
and
right.
Mother thought that somebody was bringing her something to eat. She just told them she didn't want it. And
Yeah.
they discontinued it based on her not understanding it was a test.
All right, well, let me address
that
those,
Let me
okay?
address it so I still have time.
All right, thank you now.
Yeah, let me go with the second one first, because the first
Okay.
one is very odd to me. But the second one is this 100 days. Okay, and she's exactly right. And I've talked about this before, and I'm going to do it
Yeah,
again. You know, if you are on Medicare, now I'm not talking about Medicaid, because what she's talking about is absolutely positively nothing to do with long-term care, TennCare. Okay?
Right.
You know, Aunt Gertrude falls down, breaks her hip.
yeah,
He goes to the hospital, and they let's say they put in a new artificial hip or whatever.
yeah,
Then she's there for like 3 days, and then they send her to a nursing home facility to rehabilitate. You know, you want to get her gait back and all that. You know,
Yeah.
you got to learn to walk on the new hip and on and on.
right,
And so they do. Well, Medicare will pay for that because it's rehabilitation. Okay?
yes,
Now, Medicare pays for it, but the statute caps it at 100 days. So
Right.
she's right. A lot of people don't know that the language you want to pay attention to in that statute is up to 100 days.
Right.
Not 100 days, up to 100 days. And it's up to them to decide how many days it's going to be.
Yeah.
Now, here's how they decide. When you're rehabilitating, doctors send in a report every week.
yeah,
And so if you rehabilitate, if you're there for 30 days and you know she gets her gait back and everything's fine, they say, hey, you're rehabilitated, they'll stop paying. Why? Because they pay for rehabilitation and you've rehabilitated.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Right.
Now, suppose you have a stroke and you're rehabilitating and you're there for maybe 30 or 60 days. And the doctor sends in a report that looks like this and says, hey, we have done physical therapy and whatever we do last 2 or 3 weeks, and there's been no improvement. So it's kind of as good as it's going to get. Medicare will stop paying. Why? Because they pay for rehabilitation, and they're not going to rehabilitate any better than what you've done.
okay,
So they'll stop for that reason. Another reason they'll stop, and she brought this up, and I'm glad she did, because I think this is kind of low down in the system. They'll walk in somewhere and say, hey, Miss Aunt Gertrude, you know, it's time for your PT, time for therapy. And she says, you know, I feel terrible today, I'm sick or something, I just don't think I'm up for it today. I say,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. Well, they will go back and mark that as a refusal. And I don't know how many you get, I think it's 2, maybe 3.
Uh-huh.
If you refuse PT 3 times, Medicare will drop you like a hot rock. Why? Because they pay for rehabilitation and you're not participating.
Yeah.
Okay, and that makes sense too. I mean, I think it's kind of,
it makes sense,
they're
but
gonna mark that
but it's
as
kind of harsh.
if they're going to mark that as a refusal, I would have issue with that. But I don't know if they all do that. But if you do refuse it X number of times, they'll stop you.
Yeah.
And then the next way they'll stop paying is if you get to 100 days and you still haven't rehabilitated, they'll stop paying
Yeah,
because they just have capped it at 100 days. They absolutely positively will not pay for day 101
yeah,
Medicare. That's when, if you still need to stay in a facility, that's when it shifts to TennCare, the long-term care thing.
Yeah.
So she's right, and it's not but well understood, and that, because I have a lot of people call me and say, oh yeah, we're only 60 days into Aunt Gertrude's 100 days, so we got lots of time. I said, well, you're gonna get a letter, and when you get the letter, you got like 7 days notice that it's gonna
Yeah.
terminate.
yeah,
So you're right, that's a window in which is great time to work on what we do, because we don't get somebody eligible overnight. We have
Right.
to deal with their assets reside with insurance companies, and we gotta deal with them,
Yeah.
they take time,
Yeah.
on and on. So, now, getting back to the first thing, I'm a little confused, I don't have enough information for that, because, talking about college students being on TennCare, TennCare has an under 65 program. Okay, they have several programs, but you know, pregnant women program, something called the Katie Beckett program. Those are very specialized things, but I don't see how a college kid can qualify. They can TennCare if you're under 65, it's more of a welfare kind of program, right? And
yeah.
you have to have a document. You have to be disabled,
Yeah.
meaning you have to have or at least applied for SSI or SSDI,
yeah,
and then they'll pay you. Now, TennCare considers themselves the payer of last resort. So if you need more money than what you're getting on those disabilities, TennCare will pay the additional, but they're going to be the last person in line to pay.
yeah,
And so they will pay. Now, I don't understand how somebody goes to college out of state and gets on that. I mean, there's got to be more circumstances to make that,
Yeah.
that story fit.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's, there are very specific circumstances. So
Good.
I don't think that's a rampant problem. It just can't be.
Good
But if
information on the 100 days though.
Yeah, I mean, people experience that a lot. You know, during my seminars, there's a point in my slide where I will say something like, I'm talking about Medicare and Medicaid, and I say Medicaid is the only thing that pays for long-term care. And I'm telling you, just about every seminar, there's usually somebody that jumps up like they're sitting on a spring and says, "Oh, wait a minute. Aunt Gertrude went in the hospital, and they sent her to, this nursing home, and she was there, for 3 months, and Medicare paid every bit of that." So the answer is, that's right. That was not long-term care. That was rehabilitation. So it's confusing because they send you to a nursing facility to do it. And why do they do that? Well, it's thousands of dollars a day to rehabilitate in a hospital. It's only hundreds of dollars a day to do it at a facility. So
that's what's that. Yeah, it's exactly what happens.
And you get the care you need to rehabilitate, right? Because you get walking on a new hip. I mean, somebody's got to spot you and find out when you get too tired, and that maybe you have to be wheeled back because you went too, just whatever. You need to be watched and monitored when you do that. So, looks like we're coming down to home.
Coming down the home stretch.
I'll look into that one about college students. I don't know what I'll find.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll take a look.
I'm not sure.
But listen, seminar coming up week from tomorrow, July the 19th.
That's right.
It's at 10 o'clock in the morning because that's a Saturday, and that's going to be at the Star Theater in Pulaski, Tennessee. That stands as Star with 2 A's, Southern Tennessee Area Arts Repertory. It's 105 North 1st Street, right on the square in Pulaski, and right beside my office. Don't come to my office, it'll be locked. But the red velvet ropes will be out in front of the theater. It'll be pretty obvious. Come on, we got plenty of room. Call my office at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law at 931-363-7222, or go to my website by typing in estateplanstand.com. I think you can RSVP that way too. So if you haven't been to one, I think you'll really learn a lot. I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, I know you will, and what a great venue too there at the Star Theater, right there on the square in Pulaski. So easy to find, so easy to get to.
And the air conditioners work, so good. That'll be a nice, cool place to be for a while.
Is there? While we got a minute, is there anything happening at the Star Theater?
There is on the 25th of July through the 3rd. I think is the performances of Bye Bye Birdie.
Wow!
That's been in production. Yeah, it's I think the 25th. It's going to be. It's Friday and Saturday at 7 o'clock, and the next weekend Friday and Saturday at 7. And I think on those 2 Sundays, which would be I forget the date, but it's a 2 o'clock matinee on each Sunday of those 2 weekends. And starting Monday are auditions for Steel Magnolias.
Oh yeah.
Small cast, all women.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It'll be a good show.
Yeah, it'll be good. So.
Be a good show.
So we'll be back again in a week.
Yeah, Stan Pierchoski, everybody, at Pierchoski Estate Law, located in Pulaski, Tennessee, there on the square. Again, don't forget the seminar. Let's remind people one more time about that. That's coming up next Saturday the 19th. It'll be at the Star Theater. Make your RSVP right now at 363-7222. You want to make that.
And walk-ins are welcome. If you can't commit, but you can find out that morning, just come on. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, we're ready for you. We'll do it again next Friday, Stan. Good to have you. This is always a pleasure. Every Friday here on WDXC, Stan Pierchoski with Bulletproof Estate Planning. You want to make sure to make that.
That's right. I'll be here.
We'll go back to regular programming here in just some seconds, okay?
37 FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.
You think I was too heavy of a topic, talking about the bill?
No.
I'm Chris Foster, Fox News. President Trump for the first